It feels like we're all watching AI develop at a dizzying pace, right? What was total science fiction just a few years ago is now in our pockets. And the big debate always seems to be when it's all going to happen. When will we get human-level AI? But what if that's not the most important question? What if there's another one we should be asking?
So let's dive right into that question. When this intelligence explosion finally happens, who's going to be in charge? And let's be clear, this is not some academic philosophical debate. This is about as real as it gets.
Because here's the bottom line. Whoever controls a recursively self-improving AI doesn't just get a better product. They get a decisive strategic advantage over, well, everything. You're talking about an entity that could predict markets, create new sciences overnight, and reshape global power in an afternoon. And the race to build that, it's already well underway.
Now, to really understand the stakes here, we need to be super clear about what we mean by an intelligence explosion, because this is a whole different beast than the AI we're all using today.
Think about today's AI. It's what you could call an open loop. Humans build it, humans train it, and then human engineers have to go back and figure out how to make it better. We are always in the loop. But an intelligence explosion, that's a closed loop. That's an AI that can improve itself. It rewrites its own code to get smarter, which helps it get even smarter, faster, in a chain reaction that would happen at a speed we can barely even imagine.
And, this isn't some newfangled idea. It was actually laid out way back in 1965 by the legendary cryptographer AGI. He realized that as soon as you build a machine that's smarter than its creators, that machine can then design an even smarter machine. And boom, you get an intelligence explosion that would leave humanity in the dust.
Okay, so let's get to the race to build this thing. For decades, this was all just talk, pure speculation, but something has definitely changed recently. The timelines we're hearing from the people actually building this technology have started to shrink a lot.
I mean, just look at this. You've got major players all pointing to the same small window of time. Now, you can be skeptical about any single prediction, for sure, but when you see competitors, investors, and top researchers all saying it's coming soon, well, that's when you start to pay attention. It's getting pretty hard to just dismiss it.
And this slide really gets to the heart of the dilemma. It's a classic game theory trap. Every lab knows the other labs are racing as fast as they can. The prize for getting there first is, quite literally, the world. So if you slow down for safety, you guarantee someone else gets there first.
So, if this race is on, who are the runners? Who could actually win this thing? Well, the MIT physicist Max Tegmark has a really helpful way of thinking about this.
Tegmark basically breaks it down into four main contenders. First, you could have an open source project where nobody really owns it. Second, a for-profit corporation, which is pretty much the path we're on now. And then the real wildcards, a single individual who could be doing it for their own ego or for genuinely altruistic reasons.
But here is Tegmark's crucial, kind of mind-bending insight. It almost doesn't matter which of those four gets there first, because whoever controls this technology will, by definition, become the single most powerful entity on Earth. They effectively become a new kind of world government.
And that leads to this huge fork in the road. If this power ends up in the hands of a democratic state, you've at least got some built-in checks and balances. Courts, elections, things that slow it down. But if it's controlled by an authoritarian state, well, that's a totally different story. No friction, no one to answer to. Just pure, centralized power with a technological advantage over everyone else on the planet.
So that brings us to the big question. Where does this all lead? Depending on who's in control and what they actually want, the outcomes really could be anything from a total utopia to a global dystopia or something else entirely.
Let's start with the optimistic take, because there is one. A 2023 survey of thousands of AI researchers found that most of them are actually pretty hopeful. As you can see, more than half think the outcome will be good, and another 21% think it'll be neutral. So that's encouraging.
On the other hand, you've got the dystopian risk. The philosopher Nick Bostrom has a name for this: a singleton, a single global power. And because that power would be based on superintelligence, he calls it immovable. It would be so far ahead of anyone else that it could never, ever be challenged.
The dream, the absolute best-case scenario, is what people call friendly AI. This would be a system that's designed from the ground up, from its very first line of code, to be aligned with human values and well-being. The only catch? We have to solve some unbelievably hard problems before we build it, because there are no do-overs.
And that's where we hit a bit of a wall, because right now there are at least 3 giant unsolved challenges standing between us and that safe, friendly AI future.
First, and this is the big one, is the alignment problem. How in the world do you make sure an AI's goals stay aligned with ours, especially as it gets smarter and smarter? It's this wickedly difficult challenge because the more intelligent the AI becomes, the better it gets at finding clever loopholes in any rules we try to give it.
Second, there's the problem of indifference, and this one is pretty chilling. A super AI doesn't have to be evil or hate us to be dangerous. As Max Tegmark puts it, humans aren't malicious when we build a dam that floods an anthill, we just have bigger plans. A super AI could end up seeing us as the ants.
And third is the confinement problem. Our first instinct with a dangerous AI is to say, okay, let's just keep it in a box, right? Unplug it from the internet. But how do you build a box to hold something that's 1,000 times smarter than you? It could perfectly model human psychology and literally talk its way out by manipulating its jailers.
So with stakes this high, you'd think we'd be throwing everything we have at solving these problems, right? Well, not really. The total amount spent globally on AI safety research is only in the low tens of millions a year. That's a rounding error for these big tech companies. The gap between the scale of the risk and the resources we're putting in is, frankly, it's terrifying.
Which brings us right back to that I.J. Good quote from the beginning. We all remember the first part about it being the last invention, but we always forget the fine print he included at the end, provided it is docile enough to tell us how to keep it under control. And that little condition, that's the part we haven't figured out yet.
And that's the reality of where we are right now. The foundational decisions about how this technology is built and who gets to control it are being made today. They're being made by a tiny number of people, inside a handful of labs, moving so fast that our laws and governments can't possibly keep up.
The one thing that's for sure is that this race is on. It's happening now. So the real question it leaves all of us with is this: who gets to have a say in how it all turns out?